discipline, and it's going to take time and thought. It's just like school. And we all want to get a hold of our finances, but we think the more we make, the better off we are, and that's not true. Because generally, the metaphor is the more we make, the more we are getting ready to spend, or we find ways to spend. So what we got to do is learn the new elements of life, and that card that they gave us is a monster. It's a monster because your money goes into the account, but you don't realize that your money is all piled up together. So the psyche says, I have at least $40 or $50, but you don't realize how many times a week you're swiping that card. And so, the reason I said the budget is because in talking to the person that I was just talking to, see, you should call out the amount of money you saved. And let me tell you why. Because when you call it out, you start to shift your atmosphere because you start to own it. And so your intellect and your intelligence starts to kick in and say, let me see if I've done that the last 3 months. And really, what could I have done with that? Could I have purchased more property? Could have gotten my affairs more in order legally? And so when you hide it or you don't want to own it, then the underlining metaphor is still there. So we don't want to take the metaphor saying, I do it a lot. You want to tell yourself in the atmosphere, I'm not going to do that like I've done that before. So I'm speaking those things as if though they be. So then when I get ready to do it, and it's like, well, shoot, let me just shoot through here, and your words come back. And so now you have a powerful choice to make if I'm going to stick with my word. And see, and it says something else. It says that oftentimes when it comes to money, we're too emotional. I was speaking with someone earlier, and because you become an emotional spender. Because if something is wrong or you're feeling lack, you'll spend more money to subsidize what's missing. Does that make sense? So we're rolling. Y'all can shoot me on. We're rolling. All that other stuff, I'll just skip it. Because we're talking about financial literacy. And so if someone will look up the word literacy, you means that you have to be competent in it. And when you're competent in a thing, you shouldn't be moved because the competency of the thing or the intellect or the intelligence of the thing should outweigh the emotions of the thing. And I go back for those, for a scriptorial standpoint, if you were to look at Genesis 26, 1 through 12, we're not going to read it. I think I can remember most of it, is how we see the romance, we see the love, but it wasn't until the latter stage where he had to focus on the assignment. And I think many times that people have forgotten that God has made them a promise. But I think many times from the seat of the teacher or the pulpit materian or whatever it is they want to call themselves today, no one has ever said that you have to work the promise. Does that make sense? You can have the talent, but you have to develop the talent. Does that make sense? And so you can have a promise, but when does the promise meet the faith? When does the promise meet the faith? And so it doesn't matter what you've been told and what you've inherited or what seed you have. If you are unwilling to work it, and you only work it and address it through your emotions, then it will never have sustainability. So we're going to talk about financial literacy. Anybody look up the word literacy? And we were talking about back to the basics. Today we're going to talk about laying the blueprint for ground zero. And that is a very unhappy place for most people, because many people think that they're above ground zero. And so if we're going to be at ground zero, now we're going to have to learn how to develop new infrastructure. That's why I said to you, madam, you need to claim it. You need to claim the gas. You need to claim the amount of money. You need to claim it in the atmosphere. Life and death. So you're saying to yourself, you're saying to your emotions, you're saying to your attitude, you're saying to your lack of focus, you're saying to your lack of discipline, hey, I am developing new elements of my life. Where you have ruled and dominated and caused me to do things. And yes, I have things. Just like, Isaac, he had Rebekah, but he also had a promise. But the promise couldn't come into effect until he went to work. And when you get ready to go to work on your gift, and you get ready to go to work on your promise, you can't focus on your emotions. This is why you heard me say in the last section about your intellect and an intelligence. It has to be developed. So what do you have?
Literacy.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to read and write.
See, everything talks about the ability and to acquire. And so now this is going to be a little tight. If there's nothing in your nest, home life, village, community, school district, that fosters the development of your intellect and intelligence, you are living in chaos. Because what you see is what you believe. But what you see many times is perpetrated by those that lack the ability to be disciplined and focused. Come on.
Literacy is the ability to identify, understand.
So you can identify. This is why we have the envelopes, and I'm going to talk about them. You can put me interpret. So the ability to what? Identify, understand, interpret. You need this. I hope there's somebody in Greenville that will write this down, because the last couple times I've gone to the Greenville campus, I thought I was talking to Elmer Fudd. Do you see a what? Because one minute, we're watching every Tuesday, and we took notes. What did you learn? I got to go to my notes. Well, if you got to go to your notes, you didn't learn it, because it ain't in your spirit. Hello? Everybody, I hope everybody in here would know their alphabets, right? Let's say them. A, B, C. Anybody got to look them up? Google alphabet. A, B, and we ain't gonna nursery rhyme them. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, K. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna say them, which means we have what? Learn them. And so basic financial literacy and starting at ground zero means you can take great notes, but if the notes don't come alive, then you just have great notes. This is why I say you got to own that. You got to champion that. See, when you start running the business, the worst thing you can do is be inconsistent. Don't you sit down. You ain't done nothing all day. You got to read. Lord Jesus. Y'all can laugh, but because y'all do this, you got to read. You ready to sit down. How you going to write it down and read it at the same time? You got 2 heads and 4 arms? Come on, read. Let's start from the beginning. Everybody get literacy. This is more than one person.
Literacy, the ability to read
So I want to know, and it goes back to my thought process, intellect and intelligence has to be developed. And I'm asking every parent, and I'm asking every aunt and uncle, and every grandparent, are you building the intellect of the youth? Are you talking about their procreate? She's cute, she's fine, the boy's gonna like her. Oh, the girl's gonna like him. Look at his eyes, look at his hair. See, the intellect and intelligence has to be something developed, because if not, then the youth will respond out of what their culture has shown them. So if their culture responds to everything out of their emotions and their ethnicity, which whatever that may be, then they think that's the code to function in life. So if all they see is hats, sneakers, and rims, and cookouts, then they think that's life. That's the top of the world for them, because mama's doing it, daddy's doing it. I want to know, I will be curious to know how many fathers have taken their kids to the library, done something educational with them. Really? So you just left them just, no, come on, let us take y'all to the library. Because we had a library card. Okay. How old are you, baby? About to be 20. Probably hadn't been to the library since she was 2. It's okay to laugh. Somebody over here falling out. So those are the kind of pictures I want when somebody just like, boy, got him. The what?
The ability to
So my question would be, how are you going to build the ability?
you also got the confidence.
The competence. So y'all need to make a list and send that to me, because then when I get to Greenwood tomorrow, that's what I'm going to get them with.
In a specific area.
In a specific area. Do you not think money is important? Okay. You just get up and go to work because you just like to work at the place you work at. You just work there because you love to work there. You like to work in the heat, sweat. Have you working all 12, 14, 16 hours, overtime? They didn't even ask me. Church asked you to do something. They didn't ask me. The church need to ask you. Get your permission. Job tell you we work and said, okay, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, be here, yes sir, yes sir. Let the church say something. Oh, I wish I had. Where's the vote, God? I mean, my God, just dictatorship in the church. Let work say something. Yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. Anybody I know? Anybody want to talk to me now? Come on.
Literacy is the ability to identify.
So I want to know how we're going to structure the ability. Come on. Understand. Interpret.
Create.
Remind me to talk to you about the cars. I'm going to interpret that for you. Come on.
Communicate.
Oh, Lord, we don't communicate.
And compute.
You didn't pay the bill? I know you paid it.
Use the printed and written material associated with varied contexts.
So then why are you trying to do everything out of one check? Why are you trying to do everything out of one check? Come on. This is why we're back at ground zero. Here's what I wrote. You can read Genesis 12, 1 through 6 on your own. I wrote, the promise is there, but the work is absent. We must do the work in order to fulfill the promise. We have to stop doing things based on, you can start the slides. We got to stop doing things based on how I feel. We got to do things based on where you're going. See, what does it say? You must gain. You must gain control. And that's what I try to tell y'all about going live. Y'all just up there looking at it like y'all can't read. Can y'all read? Then y'all need to talk. I need y'all to talk. If there's 1 million people watching, they think he in there by himself, because nobody said, but one person better gain control. You must gain control over your
Money or the lack of it will forever control you.
next slide. Because here's the thing. What do you do with the envelopes? That's a good one right there. You can put that in a box and put me up. I don't know if we're moved from there. Here's the thing. Someone asked a question about the envelopes, and someone made the statement and said, well, I haven't started using mine yet. And because we have been guided into a system to where everything is about the card, direct deposit, and we just see a number, but we haven't broken it down. Okay, I was supposed to be up, and that was supposed to be in the box. So what we have to do is we have to understand that this have multiple purposes. Okay? We have to understand that with this, you have to go to the bank, either with a check or with your card, and you have to draw out, which means at some point you're going to have to sit down and add up the costs, either for the week or for the next 2 weeks. Has anybody done that? No. Because then when you draw out the cash, you put the cash in here for pocket money either for 7 days or for 14 days. Now what you do when you put that amount in that you feel like this is my pocket money, every time you spend money out of this pocket money, you put a receipt in it. This is why I've not handed out budget. Because if you're not going to use the envelope, you're not going to pay attention to the budget. So then if you've got restaurant and somebody said they didn't eat out and they saved all this money, and this is why it says take control, then now you know this is my money for 7 days for a restaurant. And we had the conversation of why you're going anyway, but that's another story. But here's the envelope for it. So when you go to that restaurant and you tip, you write that amount down and you put it back in your envelope. Now, I know some people out there are saying, well, that's very childish and very minute. No, here's the whole purpose. Now, when your money's gone, you've got to sit down and justify did that money bring you something back, or did you just spend that money for pleasure? Which means either you can deduct it or you can't. If it didn't bring you anything, then what was the purpose of spending it? Because if we don't stop draining the bucket, at some point there will be nothing in the bucket. So then now, either mid-month on the 15th or on the 25th, you're going to do what they call reconcile. You're going to take all the receipts out and you're going to justify from a business perspective if you use your finances the right way. 15, 20, because if you don't do it 5 days before the next month, you will run up, because if you wait till the 30th, you're not going to do it. If you start on the 23rd and your date is by the 25th, you're going to sit down and you need to plan out about an hour, 2 hours, and you're going to start chronologizing where you were spending your money. Now, mind you, this is not even your bill money. Does this make sense? Someone said that they didn't eat out, and then they said that their gas was different. Because if you sit down and just added up your gas receipts, and you sit down and you added up every time you didn't want to cook and you just stopped by a restaurant and you just spent this and you went, because when you're swiping, you're not feeling the pain. If you're down to $40 and you know this $40 need to make it for the next 8 days, you think differently. And so what I'm trying to do is to teach a principle that you're going to have to know the value of what you're spending, and not only the value, in the timing that you do it. This is why I said in Greenville, and I'm going to go ahead and tell them tomorrow when I see you all, I'm going to ask you, have you planted your seeds? And you can say yes, but what I'm going to ask you is, did you read the instructions on the back of the seed? Or did you just go get some dirt and throw the seeds in and pour some water on it? Because if you don't follow the process and you don't follow the details, you can't get the results that you want. We do too much entirely through our feelings and emotions. So then we've got to learn, if there's nothing ever planted, then nothing can be ever gained. And if we continue to do things out of how we feel, and I don't want to work my business today, then you can't expect your business to grow when you want to work it. You have to continue to work that business. You have to get creative. You have to go and get input. If someone is doing the same thing you're doing, you need to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And one of the things you need to learn is the culture that they have built around their business. You have to learn the value and the culture of handling money. Because then when you get money, you won't get funny. You've seen people, they get a little overtime, they get a little extra money, they get funny. And so now I'm going to say this, and this is going to be offensive. If I was teaching young adults, I would say, why are you with her, or why are you with him, and you don't have 4 streams of income for yourself? So if you really were to dig and look in the Bible, it will, there's little lines in there that will tell you that someone wasn't ready yet. And we go do a lot of things that we're not ready for. Does this make sense? See, if you were balanced yourself and you knew what it took to be balanced, then you wouldn't accept anything that wasn't balanced. This comes out of Genesis 2:10 and I think 12. It's just, you can use it, Genesis 2, chapter 2, verse 10, verse through 14. It talks about the 4 rivers, and I still got to go research that, but the general study is it was 4 streams of income for life to exist. And I'm going to deal with that a little later on, because I got a press on my spirit about our youth. So you're going to see me curtail here shortly, because if you're never established and it's never established and both of you are working, how can you establish? This is how struggle and poverty and stuff is born. Other people get this, but we spit and pop so much that we don't pay attention to the details. So as I teach and I go forward, I'm going to share with men. And I've said this to men when I've done young males and they want to talk, and it's a group of them, and I say, okay, there's nothing biblically that says a woman has to work. There's nothing in the Constitution of the United States that says a woman has to work. So you meet her and she's working. What happens if you marry her and the day after you marry, she quit? And 99% of the young men in that room between the age of 21 and 35 said, well, I'll take her back to her mom. And I said, then you're not ready to be a husband. Because you don't understand what a husband is. A woman is not a pack mule. And many women, you all have made yourself pack mules. So you work hard to be loved less. And you've lost your femininity. Oh, I said it, I meant it. I ain't taking it back. I don't care if you get mad, you can dupe me off, but the truth gonna stay the same. Because most men are never in a position. Because men are absent. Most men. I saw a building board. I need to take a picture because I know somebody gonna throw rocks. It says, fatherless child equals poverty. Fact. Women have carried most men, not all, most men so long that 3 and 4 generation of young boys now think they're supposed to be carried by a woman. And women think they're supposed to carry a man now. Some do, not all. I know somebody out there. I'm not talking about you. Because men don't like to be taught or trained. And so women have stepped out of their role to cover the household, and we thank God for them. But we need our men to want to sit down and learn and be taught so they can be a husband. Look it up and break it down. I'll be glad to have that conversation. And so each one of those young men, I said, so then you're not ready for marriage. You're ready for intimacy, but you're not ready for marriage. So when I look at that, and I guess I got to go here because I'm going to close, I'm struggling because I said to the nation, I love finances. I think that's a gift that God has given me, but I got to press in my spirit of what about our youth? From conception to birth, what's being established for them? And from birth to 12 years old, what has been set aside for them? And from 12 to 21, what has grown for them? And then we release them out into a world, and they have no resources to sustain them. Because there are certain ethnicity groups and certain cultures is that when a child is conceived, people pour in. They set up a 529, I think it's a 529, my numbers may be getting mixed up. Do you know if you have a business, you can put your children to work in your business and you get a tax deduction and the money that you pay them go toward their college fund? This is besides the 529. I'm going to ask a question that may be offensive. Who's supposed to send your child to college if you don't? Everybody can't get a scholarship. Everybody's not going to be academically sound. So as a parent, this goes back to establishment. I told you, teach finances, teach finances. Finances ain't cute and pretty, because the biggest thing about finances, most programs will work, is the philosophy and the discipline and the behavior and the capability to be able to handle and function through the process. It's not about gaining more money, it's understanding the principle of money. So I think my other financial book is not going to be so much of a carbon copy of my first book. And some people's like, well, you ain't showing your book, because I'm not here to sell the book. I'm here to teach finances. I can sell the book later on down in the process. But I'm just saying, what is there for the youth? Every parent ought to have a 529. Every grandparent ought to have one and be contributing. And tell somebody there's a bomb getting ready to drop. Every aunt ought to be contributing to the foundation, because it's a tax deduction, number one. Number two, it gives the child something to function in a very competitive country. So you may not have children, but you can contribute to the 529 and use it as a tax write-off. come on, I'm gonna show this real quick because I want to end, because I gotta drop this bomb and then get ready for Greenville. You take the top, y'all tall, and then y'all twist it and put the camera on them. Here is what I have to do. Here's my difficult job. But first of all, let it be loose. Let it be loose. I wanna show you. No, y'all got it tight. Y'all got it tight. Yeah, let it loose yours, Harold. You didn't come to church with me on Sunday. I'm still mad about that thing. But here's the thing. Raise it up so that people can see. You see this tight? You see how loose it is? Things are supposed to flow through. Here is the beginning of a child's life. And when I had agreed to teach finances, one of the first things that struck me was this little bucket that says birth to 12 years old. And I couldn't remember the concept of what was I supposed to do with birth to 12 years old. And I asked the Lord, and remember we were out here, and I couldn't. I said, I don't know, just leave them out there. And so I got it. If nothing is established here, it'll never get here. Even though it looked like it'll get there. I'm going to show you why. Because as it grows, tighten it up. See, the whole job of leadership and the whole job of teaching and learning, keep going, is that as you grow, it gets tighter. So if we were to pour water on it, it would all get wet. But as we squeeze it, there's no breathing room in here. And most people and most of our youth and most of our adults are dying in the twist. And if you don't get through here, you can never get to here. So you spend your whole life in stuck, struggle, survival, poverty, staggering, because it's so tight here. You can put all the water on it, but it won't penetrate because this is the pressure point. And if you don't learn before it gets to the pressure point of life, you'll never grow. And this is what's happening to our youth. And now I understand, if I don't help us learn that we need to start before the conception of these children and have a plan for them financially, as well as a culture to develop their intellect and intelligence, they'll never develop, because there will be nothing. So they get 18 and 20 years old. Now I understand why people fake it, because they feel left out, that they're not driving a second-hand BMW, a second-hand Lexus, a third-hand. They daddy had it, then they gave it to their brother. Now they didn't pass it down. And now our kids got to go buy something. It's got 3 different paint jobs on it. The door pink, the back door blue, and the left-hand door is black. Because nobody ever established anything, because their parents got caught in the trap. So then they couldn't learn, they couldn't embrace, they couldn't expand, because all they saw was stuck, struggle, and survival. How many parents, how many kids can just say they've always heard their parents talk about how tough it is? How worth it is, and I had to work, and I had to work over, and it's hard out here. Why would they want to go? If all they see is your back bent over, and you coming in the house like this, 30 years on the mule, you coming in the house sweaty, can't even, other people can go to church on Wednesday and just leave the office and go to church. We got to go home and shower and spray and did all that and freshen up and come to church late and want to get out early. Amen. Thank you. Because we're dying. Nothing can get in. Because we're stuck. Yes. And anything that's stuck in the middle can't breathe. So now the outlet is imagination and events. Well, they cooking out, I'm going over there because I need to go somewhere. But you're not going somewhere that develops your kids and make them well-rounded. Am I making sense? You don't take them to the library anymore, because everybody is stuck, so nothing breathes. So from generation to generation, society will let you think you're coming through, But what they do is they study your behavior, but you won't study your own behavior. And as you try to come up, just start questioning it. If it was a roach or ant or a bug or a bee or anything, it's going to die because it's going to tighten up before it can get up. Yes. Yes. Because no one's ever taught you the value of credit. No one's ever taught you that when your kid get a certain age, stop putting your kid's name on the bill, but put it on a credit card and pay it off, and they come up having good credit. You see, we spend all our time spitting and popping and flying and jacking that we don't want to sit down and learn. Because what do they have when they go out and they go to school? They don't have a tablet, but they got a football helmet. And we didn't teach them how to study. We just reacted out of our pain and our feelings and emotions. And now we got a 19-year-old or 22-year-old, and we like, she crazy, he crazy. I don't know what's wrong with them. Check the house they live in. Everything is done through feelings and emotion. It's not acquiring literacy and the ability to do it, because then when you start coming up, there are people, listen, this is one of the most frustrating things it is. They don't make money off of people who have good credit. They make their most money off of people who have bad credit. You got good credit, you up here, but that's thin air. You got borderline credit, they choking you for every penny they can get out of you. Well, now you said that, say it loud. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't say that, y'all. I'm just sharing information. But did y'all not understand one of the things that she said is communication? If you don't communicate, there are people that will take advantage of you every day. And the only time you get smart is when you get mad. Then that's not being smart. That's a reaction. This is why the intellect and intelligence has to be so important, because old habits have to die. You've got to learn. I've got to be stable. So if you're afraid, and that's the whole point, and we're going to get to credit. And I'm like, we're falling out in the metaphor of finances. We start talking about credit and rebuilding credit and how to maintain credit and how to use credit, because there's some people that use cash when they should be using credit. I don't want to pay nobody. I don't want to owe nobody. But listen, your dollar brings them $1,000. How much does spending your dollar bring you? If you've got the money to pay it off, then you got the money to make the monthly payment and expand your credit base so you can get more than to just, well, I paid it off. I paid it. You can't sell it for what you paid for it. But if you use that credit and you got enough to pay it off, then you expand your credit borders. See, it's a difference in having $5,000 credibility and having $500,000 credibility. You expand your credit base because you were able to get it. You paid it off. Don't pay it off in 6 months. Wait till the 7th month. Pay it off. Now you get full credit for it. Because if you got the money, then you can make the payment. The problem is you don't understand what to use credit for. You go use credit for the craziest thing. A credit card that's going to charge you 28% interest to 35% interest back, and then you paying $16. I ain't got to pay with $16 on my monthly payment. They're killing you in interest. I have a American Express card, got an expensive one, want to turn it back in, $500 a year for it. I'm like, I don't even use it. Y'all keep holding that. I'm going to show you something. And so then what I did was then they sent it to you, and then you pay it off, but it didn't expand your borders. But then I had a bill on there, and I was trying to take care of business. And Once again, we need to. How do you have a conference call with American Express and ask them how I'm gonna pay $13 off? Yes, they wanted a conference call with American Express. They wanted to know how long was it gonna take me to pay $13 that was on my balance. You can let your imagination. And here's the whole point. Your credit card will send you something and say you don't need to make a payment this month. But the problem is they don't stop the interest that month. So that $16 you're paying, you're doing nothing but paying interest. So when I looked up, it had me paying that $16 off, $13 off in 6 years. On the bill. And it said for that $13, I would have given them $638 for a $13 bill. So this is why I don't want to hand out the budget yet. Because you'll look at the budget, but do you have the right mind to start understanding the basic finances? So if you start here with a child, and it's already tight, where do they go? They stay at the bottom. And for decades and decades and decades, they stay at the bottom. So everything in their lives and their children's lives are events and not actualities and not a lifestyle. Successful living is a lifestyle. That's why you see me talk about closing the circle. So when I come to Greenville tomorrow, to the Greenville campus, and bring successful living there, my thing is, do you really want the values, or you just want to hear good stuff? I need you to apply good stuff. So everybody, by the end of next week, should have their envelopes. And then you need to start writing down every bill, because on the 15th or the 25th, you need to reconcile. So here's the thing. If you don't understand the value of your money, they'll always take it. And here's what's so sad. You'll be willing to give it. So we need to understand money. We need to understand the difference between having money and being comfortable and being rich, and being financial stable. And you need to know the difference between being rich and being wealthy, because there's some people rich but they're not wealthy. And so from the pulpit, people have preached for decades that God's going to bless you and all this, and Satan. But here's the whole point. Not many people have said you're going to have to work that promise. See, this is saying it takes me back to the grasshopper. It takes me back when they were supposed to be going, because they got there. And because all they knew was struggle at the bottom, they couldn't see opportunity. Because everything they saw through their feelings and emotions. So now loosen it up. See, there are other generations and other cultures that they make sure the pipeline stays free. So they wouldn't understand struggle. And there are some people that have this culture mentality that they want it to be hard on their children like it was hard on them. Hard don't make you smart. One thing I wish you lose is quit saying I work hard, because then you never work smart. Because if you work hard, it comes from physical work. If you work smart from your intelligence and intellect, now you become articulate. And you can use your mind and govern a robot and a machine and a computer and make 3 times as much as you would have in 1 week working 3 weeks of overtime. Because see, some people only know success is overtime. They don't understand there's somebody working 35 hours a week making 3 times more than you working, and you working 60 hours a week. It has to do with your cognizability. It has to do with your intellect and intelligence. And if you deal with your intellect and intelligence, you also at some point got to deal with your choices. You got to deal with your choices. And here's the thing. Here's the bomb. Most of the time when this happened, and I know we were talking about 529, and we were talking about, helping kids establish credit and doing all this stuff. Let me say something as I get ready to close. This is almost impossible to achieve if we keep taking low-income jobs. As long as people keep seeking just enough to get by, they will never have the ability for things to flow because they don't see any extra money. Does this make sense? We have to stop accepting and chasing low responsible jobs. You're going to have to stretch yourself. You're going to have to stretch your capacity. You're going to have to get new certifications. You're going to have to sit in on classes. You're going to have to be in another environment because your environment doesn't speak the language. Your present environment does not speak the language to where you're going. Does that make sense? Thank you, gentlemen. It doesn't speak the language. And so for me, I think as I work my second book, well, the book on finances is really deal with the kids. And give the kids ideals how they can build net worth for themselves. Build it while you have no debt. Build it while you have no bad credit. Build it while you're young and know the value of money, so then when you get a certain age, you won't take a job that won't pay you what you're worth. See, there's some people take what they can get. And there's some jobs that people offer people and bid to get their services. That comes from intellect and intelligence. And we got to stop. If we expect to have 529s, we expect to get our kids in a situation in a better place. Listen, you're sending a kid into a world from birth to nothing. They have no resources. And so how are they supposed to make it? And if we pet them and cuddle them, we cripple them even more. Now that was tough, wasn't it? Car full of kids and no future. House full of grandkids and no future. Nieces and nephews, no future. And there's certain entities that want people to have low-income jobs, because then they can continue to make their money. It's always interesting to me, and I've always said it to people, if it's room for you, it's room for me. So next week, there need to be money or receipts. And what is the day? The 8th? Between the 15th and the 25th, you need to start reconciling. Because how you going to plan October if you don't know what September did? Come on, let's say, I just work every day as long as I can pay my bills. I thank God and I'm good. And the Lord himself said, which of you set it down first and addeth up the cost to see if you have sufficiency to finish it? Because if you don't plan now, you may not have nothing for retirement. Well, I'm supposed to have 30 kids. See, go talk to somebody on Social Security. See how well they doing. What did they give you, like $367 a week? Y'all laughing? Hey, I'm almost there. I want my check. Somebody, they have to. Yeah, but see, here's my whole point. Had someone taught them to plant early, they would have come across at least 2 or 3 harvests in their life. And if they would have invested correctly, If they'd have refinanced and paid off, then when you get to 65 and 68, some stuff should be coming off. You shouldn't be still having the same debt in your 60s as you did in your 20s. Let me teach you something. Why would they tell you if you don't have the cognitive ability to ask? Because you're sitting down at that table, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general. Most people just happy. We got a house. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. You don't read them papers. You don't know what to ask for. And why would they tell you? It's to their advantage that you keep paying high interest. Why would they tell you? Some people said to me, they said, you know what, I could have paid my house off. They told me to just make 4 extra payments a month, and I would have had my house paid off. And I ain't do nothing. I kept on spending money. Now they wish they would have paid 4 extra payments a year. One basically comes out 1 extra payment a quarter. You knock years off your house. But if all you see is struggle and survival and poverty, then you don't see freedom and opportunity. This is what I keep saying. Bricks today set up tomorrow's foundations. And so why would they tell you when you just standing there breathing hard and thanking God, you ain't reading the paper, you just grinning, taking pictures, got your family all up. You don't know what you signed. Because it's an acquired knowledge. Does that make sense? Well, but do you know what though? That's my whole point. We always listen to people tell you the rules. You ought to be the people that write the rules. Success isn't brought outside. You have to change it from the inside. And if you don't have a hunger and a passion, see, we chase too many things. There are people that chase too many things that make them shine and give them fame. I wrote something, I'm going to give it to you, and I know we were supposed to go. Here's what I wrote real quick, and I'll share this with you. I hope this is it. There's a major difference in trying to look important. And there are a lot of people who are trying to look important because they like events. But if you were to measure the event that they're trying to perpetrate to be in, and measure their actual life, and someone was having a conversation and they were sharing it with me, and they were saying, well, I'm sticking with this person because of A, B, and C. And they said, well, I didn't say anything. And they said, what would I have said? I would have said, yeah, you can stick with them, and that's nice and that's wonderful, but I want you to measure your growth and development while you have stuck with them. If you're not growing and developing, and all you're doing is sticking and defending, there's a difference in sticking and defending and growing and developing. And I tell people all the time, you know, a lot of people ask about House of Reconciliation, they ask about successful living, and I said, listen, it is a ministry that's going to challenge you. If you want to be somewhere where you've heard the same thing and you feel comfortable, then that's not a good fit. Because this is going to challenge you from the seat of your soul, that will prepare you that when you meet God, because you see what we don't understand, this is what the Lord said. The Lord said that heaven rejoices when one sinner returns to Christ. Somehow we've been preached to try to impress God with what we have. And really what we have came from God. So God is not impressed with how Reggie looks. God is not impressed with how famous Reggie's name is. God is not impressed with Reggie's houses. God is not impressed with Reggie's money. What God values is lost souls. It says heaven rejoices. And if your life isn't turning around lives that are lost, or you're trying to impress God, or you're trying to preach your greatest sermon and say things that cause people to go, wow. But who did it save? What life turned around? Who decided that they want to change their life and go back to school and come to Christ and stop being violent? Where? We've lost the value of the message. So we're trying to impress God when you can't impress God. If you want to be blessed, bring a soul to the house. That's what impresses God. God's not impressed with your offering. Ask me why. That is expected. To whom much is given, but will you take the time to help the broken, to help the lost, to help the wounded? Will you take the time to feed the hungry? Will you be hands-on? Or you just want to be with somebody famous? That's why old people used to sing a song, may the works I've done speak for me. It's not the suit I wear or don't wear. It's not the circle I keep. It's not how many armor bearers and security I have around me. It's the life you live. That someone can see Christ in you and say, I want the Jesus they have. Because when I hear their story, how God brought them from homelessness, brokenness, divorce, struggle, disease, then I see God working in them. So do you want to continue to support something that doesn't support what God's message is? You want to go there to show off in front of people who got the same thing you have? Or you want to get your hands dirty and see the smile on a child's face from Haiti who has a new dress? To see a family in Puerto Rico be fed. To see children in Africa to get fresh water. To see a family happy that they finally built the mud house. And now they know the Lord. Does that make sense? Because that's what the ministry is supposed to be about. Have we helped and lifted God's people? The lost, the broken, the wounded, the confused, the scarred, the forgotten. That's the ministry. Or we still being selfish about our wants and our desires? Did I help you? May God bless you.